quickly into space. Concepcion, blockers in front, and here he goes. KC says TD.
This is 365 Sports.
Final 30 seconds of the quarter. Second down throw to the end zone. Douglas. Touchdown, Texas Tech. What a drive.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Sorsby the key. What a cut! Broken ankles! See ya!
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Another first down for Vandy. Pressure off the edge. He steps up, and now he's going to run for the end zone and score! Diego Pavia!
Remember when you had a guy, someone who could fix anything? They're still out there at Batteries Plus. With their quick solutions and expert advice on batteries, key fobs, and phone repair, Batteries Plus will have you in and out and on your way in no time. Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
Brown takes another shot. Wide open Koger. Touchdown, South Florida. 63 yards.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And we are back as we start a new year. Happy New Year, everybody, and hope you had a great holiday break, whether it was over Christmas or even plus New Year's, etc. We are here. We have the college football quarterfinal to discuss. Also, the portal opened up at midnight. Much to get here today. Garrett Ross running the mothership solo. Andrew is out there, but just not in studio. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and I'm David Smoak, and thank you for your time. Well, Texas Tech had a heck of a year, but it ended with a thud, and it ended with just a dismal performance by the offense. Quarterback Baron Morton was uptight from the first snap, and even others like Cameron Dickey seemed like he was overmodulated, and Tech is done for the year. Still a hell of a year, good thing to build on, but Oregon was bigger, better, and faster, and Oregon's quarterback, without a doubt, was better than Baron Morton.
I think it comes down to that. In a defensive game, well, look, Oregon scored, 2 touchdowns in the game, and one of them was set up by a fumble, and the last one was was a garbage touchdown at the end, essentially. I don't want to just call it that, but they were running out the clock. The game was essentially over. Tech had a shot in the fourth quarter to make it a game. Baron Morton threw another interception in the end zone. It was a rough day for Baron Morton. And to me, when you boil it down to it, in a game like that where the defenses were so unbelievably locked in and elite, it comes down to the quarterback who can make more plays than the other guy, and Dante Moore is in a different stratosphere than Baron Morton, and that's what it boils down to me. You can go to a couple other things that Oregon's probably a little bit more advanced at than Tech is, but I don't think it's, I saw a lot of people talking about this is like a night and day difference. I was like, well, between one position it is, but for the rest of it, looked pretty close to me.
Yeah, well, hello, everyone. Happy 2026. Good to be here with you today, and as Smokey said, hope you all had a good break, and glad to be talking college football in a new year with you guys, and hope it's a great year for us and everybody else out there. But, yeah, not what we were hoping to talk about in terms of Texas Tech. I really did enjoy the last couple of days of games. I felt like even the non-CFP games, we had some interesting results that I'm sure we'll dabble with a little bit. But really enjoyed yesterday, and really was hoping we were going to be talking about a Texas Tech win just because of the uniqueness of it all, and obviously a big part of our fan base. But it wasn't meant to be, and it wasn't really ever looking like it was in the cards during that game yesterday, even though there were times where it was close, even though there were times where you saw an opening, even though Tech was hanging around. As y'all mentioned, that defense, as advertised, worth every penny, showed that it's elite, showed that it can belong nationally, showed that it played well enough that if the offense gives you something, that maybe that game goes a different way. But, yeah, they just did not have it on offense. They did not have it at the quarterback spot, and I hate that for Baron Morton. I don't know if y'all watched the post game, but he's just completely torn apart. Joey's having to console him, and if you followed his career and his roots in West Texas at Eastland and all of that, you know how much this means to him. And so to see Jacob Rodriguez also sitting there as well, I think it was hard for him to handle, but I think it was hardest for probably Baron Morton to handle just because of the way that game unfolded and the multiple turnovers and just timely bad plays and the inability to get any points on the board. You needed the defense to get a pick six.
That was the only way they're going to score.
Yeah,
honestly, yeah, exactly.
And when we picked the games last week, or earlier this week, actually, I rode with Tech. I rode with the momentum and the feel-good story. I very much felt like it was a toss-up game. I just thought that like somebody would squirt loose for them and just score a couple touchdowns, and they'd get like a big defensive play that sets them up on a short field, and they just couldn't get any of that going on. Defense was the story of the year for them, and they went out the story of the year, and it's unfortunate that story doesn't end for them with a national championship, but no hanging of the heads. I think that was an incredible year. It was a historic year. You took steps forward that are undeniable, and now it'll be all about, all right, how do you run it back? How do you attack 2026? What quarterback are you rolling out there next year? I think that will be like numero uno on the want-to-know items. What rushers do you get to refill the David Baileys of the world, right? Like they've got a lot on their to-do list. I'm sure they're prepared for it. But yeah, I know it's a tough result, but a great year for Texas Tech and just a disappointment like it's going to be for everybody except for that one team that's standing tall at the end of this.
I thought both defenses were fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Texas's defense, of course, was putting in some bad positions because 4 turnovers. Oregon, they got a chance to play. There was only one team among those who had a bye combined the last 2 years that won. And yes, Oregon won. Texas Tech did not. We know what happened to Ohio State against Miami, and then even the game late last night, or the game between Alabama and Indiana. But let's go from that. Texas Tech, it was sometimes you can start a little bit hyper. I thought it was a team that was like deer in the headlights, not on defense, but on offense. And it just like, okay, make a throw. Jacoby Williams had that long 50-yard run, and then they turn around and they spit the bit right after that. But still a hell of a run. And the bye week is, do you need it? Is it any good? Indiana did not bother them as they hammered Alabama.
It's not the bye week, it's the bye month. And that's the overall issue. I think that's the secondary issue. The bigger thing is it's dumb to have your 4 best teams wait a month to play a game just for the entertainment value of the season. And you could tighten all this up if you were just a little smart about it. But it didn't affect Georgia either. They played a barn burner. Yeah. And so the playing so soon after they didn't help Alabama. So it's different strokes for different folks. They just need to clean it up.
Yeah, I know we're looking for narratives constantly, and that was an easy one to put together given the results. I just think the better teams won. I think the better teams happen to be the road teams in most of these games. I just think that's the teams that had the byes were the teams that were inferior to the teams they were playing this week, who just so happened to play a couple of weeks ago. And so I don't really buy into the bye being the reason, like, oh, my God, we got to get rid of the byes because it's knocking out all the top seeds. I just think that the better teams won in these games. And obviously it wasn't clear across the board because we finally did get that elusive first win. And Indiana goes, yeah, what are y'all talking about? This is no problem for us. So, yeah, I'm not buying into that narrative too strong. I am buying, though, into I think the byes are dumb. Like, I don't know that they're affecting the results, but I do think it's dumb to have these teams just sitting out there, and especially when we look at this calendar, and this is more for off-season stuff. I don't want to waste we're not on 3 hours today, so I don't want to waste time on off-season talk, but I am with those who have said publicly recently and even the last few days of like, just I think it was Dan Lanning, just play the games in a row. Like no month off, just play conference title playoffs. Just go straight into it. I am totally on board with that. It makes
the teams
way more
play
sense.
Their games at home if they're the top seeds, and then just move on. If they don't win those games, they don't win those games. But at least it tightens up the window. Yeah.
No buys, 2 rounds at home, and no breaks in between except for maybe a couple of extra days as you get towards the end of it. But no long gaps, no first round buys and all of that stuff. I think would be a way better way to handle things. But yeah, I mean, Texas Tech, 78 rushing yards, guys. Mm-hmm. I know there's sacks come into play there, but 78 rushing yards. Baron Morton, less than 5 yards per play, throwing the football, 137 yards, 18 of 32. He had a QBR, not QBR, depending on how you want to judge something, but 18 Like that's, I don't care how you view that metric. That's not good in any angle, any way you're looking at that. The run game wasn't there. The pass game wasn't there. The offense just wasn't there. And the turnovers were, and that was just a double whammy that no matter how good that defense is and was, and no doubt about it, it was good. It was better than good. It just was not good enough to overcome the offense being unable to do anything as far as putting points on the board or maintaining field position and the football in their hands.
I know that there's also talk about should they have at least brought somebody in at the end, even when the game was out of hand, to just give Bear Morton a chance to. There's 22 tackles for losses in that game, 11 from both teams, more sacks than TFL, but 22 plays behind the line of scrimmage for both Oregon and the Texas Tech defense. And I love watching how disruptive they both were. The problem is that Tech's offense put the defense, even though they played great, in just too many things where you eventually the dam breaks a little bit.
It doesn't matter if you have the purple people eaters. You put them in those positions, they kept getting put in. They're going to give up some points. And I think had Will Hammond been available, maybe that's something you would have seen a wrinkle, or maybe you do try to just throw him in there to see if anything's different. But I don't think you're throwing Mitch Griffiths out there to try to, or any backup to try to really turn your fortunes around, because I don't think they would have had any better luck. And I think ultimately you give a lot of credit to Dan Lennon in Oregon. That's a really good football team. And I know we'll touch on the teams involved in this Final Four. It's as unique as you could have ever have imagined it to be. And that would have been the case if either Tech or Oregon won, since they're both in pursuit of a national title for the first time. But I think Oregon very well might be the year for them. I don't know, but here they are. They're 2 games away, and they are very good, and their quarterback's awesome, and they've got tons of studs, and they were the first team that Tech ran into. And as Joey said in the postgame, that's the best defense we've played all year. But they're the first team they ran into where I think they go, I don't think we've got the huge talent advantage we've had in most of these games this year.
So you have 4 teams that are left, right? And we mentioned Indiana smothered and embarrassed Alabama. You had the win from Miami the night before against Ohio State, and then, of course, the incredible banger last night. Ole Miss's last national title was like 1960. Indiana has never won one. Miami's last was maybe the greatest football team of all time in 2001. And then we know Oregon has been on the cusp. They've never won one. It is truly new blood in the Final Four.
Well, part of Ole Miss's thing is I think they're kind of reaping what they sowed as the state of Mississippi for so long in the 60s and 70s, where they let everybody else kind of get ahead of them by allowing more talent faster in other parts of the country, by desegregating faster than most they were slow to it.
But even Texas was slow to it.
Well, yeah, and that's why. Well, they also had a big long gap
after the night. Well, after they won during the 60s, twice or 3 times.
And then it was 2005. But before they won, so those things do historically matter. It is like this is. I think I don't even know if meaning to. They hit on a really good playoff format. Most of the people I see lamenting the format are the ones who just want to see Alabama win all the time, who just want to see that. And I think that it's proven out over these 2 years that this is fun. This is good. Can you make minor tweaks to it to make it better? Yeah, sure as hell can. But, man, we've got Ole Miss, Miami, Indiana, and Oregon.
And they're really good.
Bring it on.
Really good team. All have different stories. It's a great story for all 4.
Yeah, I know we'll talk about just kind of how this all unfolded, but to get to this point where it is these teams, and it's a 5, and it's a 1, and it's a 6, and it's a 10. If this was the old way of doing things, we just lined up Indiana, and we would have lined up Ohio State, we would have lined up Georgia, and we would have lined up Texas Tech. And 3 of those teams aren't in this bad boy as we get into the Final Four. And so there's all sorts of hand-wringing. There has been for the last couple years. There was a lot of bitching 2 weeks ago, people lamenting blowouts. I don't see the tweets about safety hazards after the blowout of Alabama. I missed those. I know that's been a recurring joke on social media the last 24 hours, but I have to mention it here because I saw those tweets from multiple outlets and multiple big-name, well-followed people in college football who have voices that matter and are influential, and they're all throwing out this narrative of a couple weeks ago as they watched 2 teams they just frankly didn't want to watch in the playoff because they rather would have been watching Texas or Vandy, and they're talking about safety hazards, which I thought was utter BS. Didn't see that mentioned other than having to kind of own that yesterday when Bama's getting their head kicked in to start the fourth quarter. Nobody worried about safety of Alabama in this case, which was just kind of funny, but very much highlights the double standard and kind of talking out of one side of your mouth that you see a lot with the rhetoric about the playoff. I don't think it's perfect. We just talked about get rid of the first round buys, have a couple rounds on campus. There's a lot of things you can do. But I don't know how you get to this Final Four and you think this is anything but awesome. You've got a team in Ole Miss who you mentioned their national title, but it was shared. It was a shared title. Miami since 2001, as you mentioned, and then the other two have never won one. I think that's awesome, and we would have just been force-fed, here's Ohio State. Well, did Ohio State look like they deserved to be in the Final Four compared to who they ran into in Miami? No. Did Georgia? No. Did Texas Tech? No. The only one that's proven they belong there at this point is Indiana. Now, I know it's not exactly like this automatically means these are the best four. These are the best four right now, but that's how a tournament plays out. And I love where we are heading into this Final Four. I think it's new, it's interesting, it's fun. There's going to be a fresh national champion that's not just Bama or Georgia or Clemson for the first time in forever. And I am looking forward to it with no skin in the game whatsoever. I'm very much excited about where we found ourselves.
Okay, we had for years, and now we started to see this backlash of shills who have said the NCAA basketball tournament sucks. And you're like, no, we all love it because it is like this. And the people who wanted a college football playoff for years were like, why is this level? It's like this level of college football, of college sports, is the only one who does this. Everybody else in college sports, everybody else in professional sports has some sort of tournament. But college football determined a long time ago that they weren't going to have that, and then waited Division I, I'm sorry. College football decided they were going to have that, and then finally has it, and we have people that are just like, oh, I don't know how I feel about seeing Indiana win in this thing, and they're not a blue blood, or I don't know how I feel. I don't think Indiana's probably not the right story, but I don't know how I feel about seeing some of these other teams in it, and Ohio State losing. Well, they lose. That's what happens.
I think Joel Klatt, who's one of the guys. I mean, there's multiple though. I can go over various networks. I can go over CBS, On3, ESPN. Like they've all got guys who have their points and have made some, I think, clunker takes as far as the playoff when we were knee jerking to the first round, and then you saw an adjustment in between, and then the reaction to this weekend. But, yeah, I mean, Joel Klatt's going to have more of a Big Ten slant. I don't think he's complaining about Indiana, but he's complaining about James Madison. He's complaining. So, that's where, again, we can get into the offseason and talk about the tweaks that need to be made. I don't think there needs to be 2 G5s. But does there need to be a tournament? I think there does need to be a tournament. I think the tournament's a no-brainer. I think the details of it can constantly be modified depending on where you are and what the nature of the sport is on and off the field. And for right now, it is imperfect. But it's arrived after a very messy first round with a lot of consternation and just anger and a lot of infighting and outside fighting between just everybody involved in loving this sport. I think we can all go, not every game was dramatic and awesome all the way to the wire, but what we ended up with was pretty damn cool. And I think this is really cool.
It ended up with a great game last night.
Yeah. So
God, what a game.
Here's the other thing is that the people who are the elitists don't really nail down the problems. There were only 2 problems with this year's college football playoff. One was the committee propped up Alabama and let them get in and let them be in a position to get in no matter what happened in the SEC title game.
But again, they got left out last year, and so they were not going to do that 2 years in a row.
So that to me is the larger issue of you shouldn't prop anybody up. You should just let it play out. The second issue, which is way easier to fix, is the ACC is not run by people who are up and up on what the best tiebreakers are, and the ACC had a stupid tiebreaker. So it's not the committee's fault. It's not anybody else's fault, but the ACC for having a stupid tiebreaker that they could have maybe seen coming had they asked enough questions about it. That's why we had 2 G5 teams, not because
it was an exception. It just worked out that way. And I wish we would just let things play themselves out and we go from half of a game. Yeah, I mean, there was a weird type of an exception, and so what? Move on.
Yeah, I think my point is like maybe the first round there can be things, but again, that's an off-season conversation. So let's focus on the games and realize that wherever we were a few days ago, we've arrived a few days later at a very cool point where I think we can all be kind of happy, unless you're a fan of the teams that got beat the last couple of days.
I'm going to say a note from each game. We've mentioned Tech and Oregon. Obviously, Oregon just dominated that game as far as what they were able to do by moving the ball, even though Tech's offense, defense, it was Tech's offense that was just awful. Their special teams were bad too. But then let's get to Indiana taking the Alabama Crimson Tide's soul and grabbing their heart and splitting it out of their chest and crushing them. It was never close. And what Indiana and Kirk Cignetti have done, they had a bye, didn't affect them. 38-3 by bloodshed over Alabama. And I bet a lot of people who are tired of that 14 years of Nick Saban are like, this is pretty fun to watch. I don't have anything against Alabama, but my God, is Indiana just dominating people.
Yeah, and I loved this game. I thought it was great, even though it did get drab in the fourth quarter. But so what? That's what happens. There are blowouts all the time. It happens to even Alabama. And this is what I think is fascinating to me about Kurt Cignetti is a lot of times when you have someone who goes to a program that's never won before, like the words you hear thrown about are like, wow, it's really innovative. We've never seen this before. All right. But I do think that the ones who rebuild programs like Bill Snyder did at Kansas State or Kurt Cignetti has done at Indiana, what they've done is they're not necessarily innovative scheme-wise. They have great coordinators who call great plays and do amazing things. Kurt Cignetti just said, I'm going to coach us to where we are fundamentally sound across the ball on both sides all over the place so that we are baseline 8 wins. Bottom line, we're going to be so good and not make mistakes that we're going to have 8 wins before everybody else wakes up. And the other 4 are where we're going to have to do some spectacular things. And that's where your, improving the talent level comes in to another level. But they are so fundamentally sound. I don't know if I've seen a football team that doesn't make mistakes, just stupid ones, where their fans aren't going like, oh, here we go with a false start again. Like, they just don't do that.
No.
Carter Smith had a hold yesterday, the left tackle, and it was only because he had it perfectly positioned, and the defensive line from Alabama reached out and his jersey stretched. Otherwise, they don't get that hold called. It was unbelievable.
They're fundamentally just so good across the board.
Yeah, Google me, I win. That's what he said, and he ruffled a lot of feathers, and I wasn't quite sure what to make of him. Felt like he was a bit brash and arrogant, but have come to really enjoy Kurt Cignetti because he talks the talk, but he walks the walk, and I respect that. I don't like talkers if there's nothing to back it up, but with him, there's been more to back up than I could have ever have imagined that he's accomplished in such a short amount of time. It's just it's an unreal, and like he said at the end of the game yesterday, this would make a great movie. And I'm sure it will be soon. I'm sure it will be, especially if they cap this off with a national title. You've got everything from the Heisman to just the rebuild to all the JMU background. I mean, it would make a really compelling story with or without that title, but that would be the cherry on top. And I hear all sorts of other pundits and analysts trying to figure out what the secret combination is to this, and it's not they went and just spent a ton of money in the portal and they spent $6 million on the D-line, or they went and got the huge quarterback or any of that. They got a really good quarterback out of the transfer portal, obviously, who won the Heisman, but they weren't super flashy money in your face, that kind of a deal. It's just, that's not why they're winning. They're winning because they have talent, but it's all goes back to the coaching. And what Paul said, they just are so solid. There's not a weakness anywhere. They don't do dumb stuff. They don't have guys jaw-jacking to get an unnecessary 15-yard penalty out of nowhere like you see sometimes with teams that kills a drive or he sets up a team that was dead in the water. They smell blood. They stab further. You know what I mean? They are killers, man. And they are relentless and ruthless and just so solid and sharp. I don't know how else to describe it. It's
methodically good.
Incredibly impressive of just how well put together and well executed this team is, and I marvel at it every time I watch them.
They are methodically good across the board. Their coach looks like a cold-blooded killer, and they play that way without talking trash.
Well, look, that was full, like, I'll tell you, he went full Italian yesterday when Kalen DeBoer tried that punt, no punt, we're going for it, like little 4th and 1, like, oh, you got to take a timeout, we're going to take a timeout, trying to mess with the team. Kurt Signe just stared across the field and said, run whatever play you want. My guys are going to be in the backfield.
Yeah, I mean, he believes in everything that they do. He's a guy who has everything planned out, and they have no confusion about who they are or how they do things. And it's very clear in the way that they play football that it is like there's one membrane for all of them, right? They're all tapped into like the same brain. And it's just a marvel to watch, because it's rare to see somebody just so on the same page as this entire team seems to be and has been throughout the entire year. He's done an amazing job, to say the least. He's getting a lot of flowers, and he deserves them. They still got a couple games to play, obviously, but it's an incredible story.
Rematch against Oregon, then if they win, who else they have down the road? And the offensive line getting the MVP, that was great. You could see the excitement from the players, the playmakers, with what they do. Their run game is just volatile. And how many of you could name their running backs? Can you? They are just really, really good. All right. Miami. They win. They 24-14. Their defense is as disruptive as Oregon's was, or as Tech's tried to be. Miami just looks like a team that has hit the peak and the stride at just the right time.
Well, going back to Tech for a second, there's a few in the audience that may remember. I just want to say that the whole Carson Beck conversation after what's unfolded the last few days, I stand by what I said back in the summertime. I think Tech kicked the tires on him. I do, but we're not going to revisit that. But Miami's defense is just insanely good. Their trenches are insanely good. And then Carson Beck's a really good veteran quarterback to have leading the charge, a guy who can make not insane plays. He's not out there like Trinidad Chambliss, but he's just making the smart play and the good decision. And so long as you don't get bad Carson Beck turning the football over, you've got a really rock solid guy who can guide you. And then when you've got the disruption that you have in the trenches, and the defensive line and the weapons that you have on that side of the ball that can just terrorize offenses. And then you've got guys paired around Beck who are pretty damn good, the Malachi Tonys of the world, those types of guys.
Oh, number 4, Fletcher. Mark Fletcher.
Yeah, Mark Fletcher's incredible.
Battering
like they are just a really good team everywhere you look, and they all did their thing the other night to the degree they needed to. And I take my hat off to Miami. I thought that they were a bit of a goof 3-4 years ago. When John Ruiz was leading the way, I thought that was goofy. The whole Jaden Rashada saga and all that, like I thought that they were the poster child of what we didn't want NIL to be. And then Ruiz obviously had some things go on, and they kind of pivoted away, but they've still been quarterback transfer you. And I wondered with Carson Beck, I wasn't the biggest believer in him, but watched him this year. And I mean, I always thought he had talent, but just didn't know if he would be like the guy that puts Miami over the top. But he's a piece of what has put them over the top, along with their offensive skill guys. And again, that defense, that defensive line is just incredible. The offensive line is very good. They are just a really good football team. They have more than proven they belong, obviously. They may well win the damn national title, and we thought the ACC wasn't going to get anybody in. So they have been a savior for the ACC to not only just get in, but now to go and win a couple of games. Go and win a couple games you weren't expected to win, and to do so convincingly. Like, no, like, blocked an extra point and you win by one. No, like, fluky thing. Like, it's like, no, Miami's for real, and they proved that again, just like they did in College Station a couple weeks ago.
History repeats itself quite often, and I will go through the national championship or elite quarterbacks that Miami has had. And from like Jim Kelly, like they had Jim Kelly and Vinny Testaverde and Bernie Kosar early on. But then when you get to Jimmy Johnson, he went with Steve Walsh. Okay. So Steve Walsh, look, and again, all these guys were multi-decade NFL players. All right. Well, then and Jimmy Johnson left and Dennis Erickson won with Gino Toretta, who won the Heisman Trophy. Gino Toretta was not spectacular. He had great skill players around him, and he had a spectacular year and won the Heisman Trophy. They won in 2001 with Ken Dorsey. Ken Dorsey was the worst player on that team. And I don't say that negatively. Ken Dorsey would agree with me. He was the least athletic guy on that team. But if you surround the quarterback at Miami with the athletes that you can get at Miami, you are going to win some damn games. And when you have a guy who's a 5-star recruit like Carson Beck was, even though he has not fully lived up to that potential, he certainly lived up to being maybe a 4-star recruit.
Man, you look at his record, though, and you go, I think he has lived up to that.
So he's lived up to, when I think of living up to a 5-star, it's like a guy who's a sure, like
a Heisman winner.
Like a Heisman winner. But he's lived up to being a really high-level recruit. He's efficient. If you can avoid having one of those games where he has a total meltdown, they're likely going to win.
Remember the Peyton Manning, Arch Manning, who was great in his bowl game. But remember when Peyton Manning could not win a championship? And remember they played Green Bay and Favre, and he had that helicopter run near the goal line. There was a run by
That was Elway who had the helicopter run.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Elway, that's what I meant. Elway, who could not win. He lost all the Super Bowls and then had the helicopter run against the Packers in 96. Carson Beck, I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was a 3rd down scramble, and he had to get 3 yards, and he went head first, made the play. It was one of those moments that it seemed like it just kind of calmed him down too, and Miami advances. And they look really good. And now, of course, with Ole Miss and the high-octane offense going against each other in the semis, ought to be a lot of fun.
That was a massive 1st down run. I mean, he lowered his shoulder, got a bunch of yards. And, he's not a guy known for running the ball, but that was one of those, just moments from that game that you go, this is when we're playing the national title tape at the end of the year. That'll be on the highlight reel, as well as the defense just ragdolling people and living in the backfield. He was a great pickup for them. I think that's probably why Tech kicked the tires or various other teams did. And now it's showing that you were right to do that if you did that. And Miami got themselves the right piece to fill out the rest of the puzzle. And they are a really fun story. I think Miami is a really fun story. And like I said, I didn't love the early NIL days where it just felt like we're going to go buy we're going to get a life wallet guys going to go buy us a team and all of that. But Cristobal took his hits over time, had some bungles there along the way, had some dips, but also had some great moments. And now they've just all put it together into this run. And it's been very cool to see for a fan base that's been starved for that. And I don't know that there was great atmospheres across a lot of these games, but Miami was about as good. I mean, they had everybody that seemingly showed up in Arlington, including Irvin and Ray Lewis there on the sidelines. But, I mean, the Canes came and represented in North Texas. That was for sure.
Andre Johnson was there.
Yeah.
They had it. They had it going. And Mario Cristobal is probably not the best strategist when it comes to he's not a chess player coach. But what he is I'm going to knock you around, coach. I'm going to have an elite, and they have an elite offensive line, and I'm going to have pass rushers that you fear. Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor dominated Texas A&M. I think partially because they're elite and great, and a small part of it is that Trey Zune very stupidly called them out. What he should have done is I don't know how I'm going to do this. It's going to be tough, as opposed to, no, it's not a big deal. They're badasses, and they played like badasses in both these games that they played. The other defense, if players are elevated around them, and then the offense just kind of played off of that. The fact that it's just momentum from the defense. Anytime that Ohio State really got anything going, Mesidor, Bain, somebody else is in the backfield, making Julian Sands' life hell.
Yeah, he had no chance either, although that was 24-14. But then you had the game last night to wrap up the 4 quarterfinal round games, and I was trying to get some work done. I couldn't. What Trinidad Chambliss and Gunnar Stockton, that game was phenomenal. Kirby Smart loves to gamble. One came back to bite him, even though they came back to tie or even take the lead. That game there was just phenomenal. It was a banger deluxe.
Yeah, I'll own that when we were making picks, I was like, I think this is the least interesting of the 4, right? Because it was the matchup that we had seen, and it was a great game. But I felt like whether it was Shahan or other analysts we had kind of figured well, if there's going to be a blowout, it might be this game. And obviously everybody was wrong, and that's why you roll the ball out there. You don't go off the spread or the previous result, although some of that can come into handy. Ultimately, you got to go play the football game, and there was that wild card that looked to be a detriment of not having Lane Kiffin, when in actuality it might have been a benefit to not have him in some ways. I don't know. I don't think we'll ever really know, but there were big questions about, like, well, can Ole Miss go beat a team that beat them the last time and do so now without their head coach and do so with half the staff, like 1 foot in Baton Rouge, 1 foot in Oxford or wherever the Rebs are actually, practicing or wherever. And for at least another round, the answer is they can do that.
And they expect to be a part of it. That staff said they're going to keep going as long as they have a game to coach.
Yeah, I don't know that they expect it to be this far, so we'll see.
I don't know if they did or not, but
we'll see how that all works. I think most of them will stick around as long as they possibly can, if not the whole way. But what a cool story for Ole Miss. And a team that maybe wasn't the most likable when the old head coach was there, who's now like America's team because the old head coach is not there. I found myself rooting for Ole Miss like I'd never rooted for Ole Miss before. I was like, come on, guy. It was crazy. And it was also helped of who they were playing, because we've seen that team win multiple national titles recently. We've seen Kirby have his heyday. So to see Pete Golding out there, I did, though, the whole conversation about coaching, the end of the first half, and the way they botched the clock, I was like, oh, God, this is the rookie coach who's in his second game. And I was like, this is what's going to be the difference maker.
The receiver has to get out of bounds.
It was very much the player's fault.
Yeah. But
you're like, oh, gosh, is this the kind of thing that's going to unravel them? And fortunately, it wasn't. And, man, their receivers had some, the tight ends especially, had some big drops early, but they made some huge catches late. Chambliss was freaking amazing with some of the stuff he did.
He made 3 remarkable type buying time throws to keep that drive alive.
And a guy who I think has gotten a lot of attention. I believe he's first team all SEC. I don't know if he was an All-American or not, but I'm a huge fan of his, and I have been all year. Quan Lacey's a freaking dude, man. He is an absolute dude. He's a Texas guy, so I've been following him very closely. And I feel like for like the Earl Award, if Haynes King hadn't been the winner, like Quan Lacey was my vote. I think he's really great, and I just think the whole story, the game was awesome, the drama was awesome, the setting was awesome, the players were like, it was all just great. It was the perfect capper.
I think college football needed that last night after the way.
I couldn't agree more. It was super fun. And I think the thing that's interesting about this is Lane Kiffin's got his staff there, and they're trying to make sure that they don't tamper and all that. But the way that the players seem to feel about Lane Kiffin is right now they're mad at him. Now, granted, money changes your anger quite a bit if that comes down to it in the next couple of weeks. But Lane Kiffin took the LSU job because he feels he can win a national title there better when he's in a position to win one at Ole Miss. And that's Lane Kiffin's choice, but the players are all like, well, what the hell, man? What have we been doing here? And I think you can see that charging through their veins right now of, we are out to prove everybody wrong, including the guy who brought us here in the first place. I think that was a key. I love Trinidad Chambliss. I love the story. I thought Georgia was going to get another ref gift last night when they missed that egregious face mask. But ultimately, it worked out in the end.
Yeah, and Kirby went for it, dialed it up on 4th down, remember, and that failed, but they still came back to put the game.
They had a big missed field goal.
Huge, no, absolutely. Ole Miss, and then the craziness at the end when the game never seemed like it was going to end because of the officials and the kick return and the fumble and the safety and all that other good stuff.
We got to go to Zach Barnett, but that was such a
we got Ari.
Ari, but that was such a ref show at the end. And then granted, like, you did have the 1 second on the clock, but I just hated the way that game ended, where it was on and off, like moving off the stage, and it was just kind of goofy, but it was a great game and a great finish to the weekend for sure.
So you have the 4. Miami is in, Ole Miss, and then Oregon rematch with Indiana in the semifinals next week. We'll get into more of it. We'll also have a full throttle from the portal with Max Olson at 4. But coming up, he was in Miami. Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio on TuneIn. He joins us next, and this is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Ken Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. How can he help you? 1 out of every 3 to 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone, from energy to sleep habits are changing to a little belly fat, and you're pretty active and have a pretty good diet, or your testosterone level has ruined whatever sex drive you have. And if you have a little bit of that, you can't perform. Get in touch, pettycliniclowt.com. Tell them I sent you. Dr. Petty and his staff will set you up to get your blood work. Take care of that. Get the results. Get in touch with you if you need a testosterone boost at pettycliniclowt.com.
My go-to guy. Can you fix my smartphone?
Yes.
Get car batteries?
Yeah.
What about golf car batteries?
Of course.
Battery from a G-Fob?
Absolutely.
My boat?
Huge variety.
Toy boat?
Sure.
Motorcycles?
You bet.
My apartment building?
Whole building.
Do you have batteries for my party lights?
Yeah.
Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
At Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, we're proud to be your premier destination in Waco for exceptional automotive service. Whether you're searching for a new vehicle, a quality pre-owned car, or dependable service and parts, our team is here to take care of you every step of the way. Visit Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco, where great deals, friendly service, and your next ride are waiting. Come by, let's be friends.
Hello, I'm Camille Johnson with Camille Johnson Realtors. We specialize in selling residential real estate agent all across our community, and we love serving all types of families. We have been in business at Camille Johnson Realtors for almost 9 years, and I have been a residential real estate agent for almost 40 years. And we love our partnership with 365. So thank you for partnering with me, and thank you so much to all of my clients who have made our company a success.
If nagging, persistent joint pain has upended your life, listen, there's a solution for long-lasting relief. No surgery, drugs, or downtime. QC Kinetics uses a revolutionary therapy that could revitalize damaged tissue in your knees, shoulders, hips, and more. QC Kinetics targets the source of your pain, not just the symptoms. Thousands of patients have experienced life-changing results, and they're right here. Find out if you're a candidate for this game-changing therapy. Call QC Kinetics today for a free consultation.
You got batteries for my side-by-side?
Yes.
Replace my flashlight?
Sure thing. What about my business?
Ooh, good one.
100%. Batteries for my fleet of trucks?
Gas floor scrubbers?
Yes, and fire panels. We have pallets of batteries.
Well, what about...
As your go-to guy, if it needs a battery, we have it.
Well, that's all you had to say.
Could have led with that.
Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
There is a bowl game. One just kicked off, Navy and Cincinnati, Big 12 Cincinnati and the midshipmen. Texas Tech, well, they wish. Texas State 41-10 over Rice, 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter, and that game is the Armed Forces Bowl, the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl, and a huge game for the Texas State offense, winning big 41-10.
Yeah, blowout there in the Armed Forces Bowl. We've been there. Seems like it's probably much better weather than when we were there a few years ago. But
by 75 degrees.
Navy, Cincy kicking off in Memphis. The Liberty Bowl just underway. Got Arizona, SMU later tonight in the Holiday, and then Wake Forest, Mississippi State also later tonight in the Mayo Bowl. So we're going to see somebody get Mayo dumped on them later tonight. Either whoever emerges out of Wake Forest or Mississippi State. So that'll be the capper along with that Holiday Bowl. Arizona and SMU, which could be a hell of a game. So, looking forward to watching this final day. This is the final day of like the regular bowl season. and it'll be all playoffs from here on out. So not a bad slate at all.
By the way, I saw that the ratings have come out. We're trying to track down Ari. Saw where the ratings came out for a lot of the bowl games, and a lot of them were in that 2 and 3 plus million and higher, and that's for before the last 2 or 3 days. So people are watching the bowl games. They've had a great audience, and even bowl games that perhaps you thought would not really get many eyeballs.
Yeah, I don't know what the comparisons are to 5 years ago, 10 years ago. If they're great, then ESPN will put out the promotional materials and we'll see they're up 25% or, whatever by the end of it. But we'll see those trickle in, and then maybe on a show in the next week or two, I'll kind of go over some of the highlights. And obviously the playoff ratings will be very interesting to see those. A blowout like an Indiana-Alabama versus a game like last night, Ole Miss, Georgia, that was just so compelling all the way to the end. We've had a little bit of everything, but I've enjoyed bowl season, and I think the way this second round of the CFP unfolded, that even the blowout in Indiana-Bama's case, most of the country enjoyed that, right? Like they enjoyed watching that. And so I think for all of the gripes about the first round and how all of that went, we're in a place just a week and a half or so later where you're wrapping this up and you're going, that wasn't so bad. Yep. That was pretty fun. Like, hell, man, like the Pop-Tarts Bowl was awesome. And I mean, the Big 12's had some hellified results. Not everyone's going their way here lately, but they started off with a bang with some really fun games. Yeah,
BYU, that game with Georgia Tech was phenomenal. By the way, ESPN PR, the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which is America's bowl game, 8.7 million.
Massive number.
Best since 91.
Wow.
Top non-college football playoff game in New Year's Six Bowl since the 2019-2020 Citrus Bowl. 7.6 million for the Pinstripe Bowl. 6 million for the Tax Slayer Bowl. On and on and on. I mean, every one of these games, there's 10 of them that had 2.4 million or better from the games that were through December 27th.
That's going to put a real wrench in my plans to get rid of all the bowls and go to a college football NIT.
Yeah, I think that idea sucks, Paul, honestly, for you. But I don't agree with that. I think there's a place for bowl games. I don't think it has to be held in the same regard that it was in 1993 because the sport is drastically different. But I do think there's a place for them. I think you're seeing that. I think that BYU was over the moon to win the Pop-Tarts Bowl and had a great time, and that's a great number for them. That's a game Notre Dame was supposed to be in, right, and did not want to play in it. And I think that Georgia Tech and BYU said, all right, we'll go have a hell of a time, and they did. And they had a fun game, and they popped a huge rating. So that's awesome for the Pop-Tarts Bowl. The Houston-LSU game was a lot of fun. I know without trying to get into like, well, LSU wasn't, I'm not trying to get into that and act like this is all week 2 results or whatever. But for all the bowls suck and the bowls need to go away, I think we've had a lot of examples of, no, there is a place for them. It's just maybe not the same way constructed that it's always been.
Best on record, best since 13, 18, 9, 2011, best on record. It's been awesome.
You know what? Here's the thing. I'll compromise on my college football NIT or whatever. If we can stand up to the New Year Six and say, sorry, guys, you don't have the playoff that's on campus until the last game.
Well, hopefully they would do that. I'd at least look at tweaking that in some particular way. Ari Temkin was in Miami for the dominant win for Oregon over Texas Tech in what was otherwise a phenomenal year for Tech, but ended in a thud. And Ari Temkin was there. We got him? Oh, he hung up. I think he's in a bad cell area. That's why we're struggling with that to get him locked in. But we'll go back to Ari when we can. But these are great numbers, good for the bowl games. And obviously ESPN and ABC did a lot of those games. The highest ranked games were on ABC. It's a big network. It's a huge regular national network.
I mean, yeah, good for the TV networks. I mean, I don't really care that they enjoy this, but I am happy that the sport's healthy and that the sport's drawing good numbers and these games are getting good eyeballs. It doesn't take much to then get us to also not like ABC for some of the stuff they do.
You're right.
But I'm glad the game is getting its just due, and there's a lot of these that you thought may be an afterthought or something that are absolutely not, and instead are having nice audiences enjoy the product and enjoy some teams maybe they don't typically watch, whether that's for just, hey, I was on vacation and this was on TV, or it's gambling or whatever. Some of these numbers that you're mentioning seem to indicate that bowl season is far from dead and far from the afterthought that some people paint it to be.
We will have Max Olson on at 4 o'clock for about 10 or 12 minutes. It's a crazy busy day for guys like Max and others who cover the transfer portal. We're going to just blow him off, right?
He's in the middle of airport security.
Let's just forget that. We'll go back to some other things we did not get to. Do we want to do the Kyle Whittingham blowback and change and what that's done, or what?
Yeah, I guess
let's do that. So we knew that Morgan Scalley was coaching, waiting, and then the story about Whittingham kind of just said, okay, it's time for me to move on. Then all of a sudden there's Michigan. And then I've seen, like, the last 2 or 3 days, Whittingham is putting together a staff of player or coaches that he knew, hired, and even from with Jay Hill at BYU. He is putting together a staff, and now Utah fans are going, what the hell's going on here? You can't do that. Yes, you can. You put together the staff you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who, as soon as he got that job, you started wondering through his connections, both at Utah and abroad, and obviously a BYU guy at heart, who he might go after. And Jay Hill was a name mentioned early on. And there was, Crumble Cookie guy came back out, tried to save the day like he did with Kalani Sitake, and tried to pull at the heartstrings with another tweet of tell Jay Hill how much you love him. And this time around, it didn't work like it did the first time around. I think BYU will take the trade-off if they still got to keep Kalani Sitake. But, yeah, I think you're going to miss Jay Hill. I think he was a really important part of that staff, did a great job with that defense. Not necessarily irreplaceable, but I do think it's a ding that we're going to have to monitor with BYU moving forward. And I think a big key for them will be some of these draft declarations, guys who walked on senior day but maybe haven't officially declared. They stand to – yeah, they're bringing Bear Bachmeier back and they're bringing Parker Kingston back, but we know they're losing Chase Roberts. But are they also losing LJ Martin? Are they losing key pieces off of the defense? Like, I think that'll be a big key, but you were hoping to hold on to Jay Hill. You couldn't do that. And Kyle Whittingham is bringing along not only Jay Hill from BYU, but he's bringing Jason Beck over from Utah, bringing him along with some other Ute staffers, and that staff starting to come together up there in Ann Arbor. And I think now it's what happens with Bryce Underwood, right? Like, what are we going to see with Bryce Underwood? Is Jason Beck coaching him, or does Underwood enter the portal? And then do they go grab Devin Dampier? And then, like, what's the domino effect there? So there's a lot still to be figured out, but I do think that Kyle Whittingham is sending some shockwaves through his old stomping grounds in the state of Utah with some of these coaching hires that he's made so far. And I just think it's really convenient that you bring up Utah and fail to mention that Morgan Scalley was coaching the other day in a bowl game, and Utah, despite all that was going on.
Devin Dampier humiliated Nebraska. I said 44-17 or what. That did not surprise me at all, other than Nebraska led at one point for very, very little time. Utah beat the hell out of them. Not a surprise. I sat there and watched it. Nothing's changed except Matt Rule with the damn hat turned around backwards like he's Tony freaking Romo, which is I don't like that look at all.
He really does. And we like Kevin. Kevin James. We like Kevin James. We also like Matt Rule, and that meme just becomes more and more reality, like every day.
I agree
with every loss. And yeah, I had to throw that in there because there have been so many results while we've been gone, and Utah's had some changeover, but that was a really nice win for them. And just a blowout ass kicking of a proud Big Ten program, sans Kyle Whittingham, and starting this Scalley journey.
Didn't bother them that they had a lot of people that weren't going to be back.
But, Dampier played really well. And I did see Smith Snowden has entered the transfer portal.
I saw that,
that's a very interesting.
John Henry Daly.
And John, we mentioned him a couple days ago. Yeah, John Henry Daly. Was he the portal? Yeah, he was the portal. It's hard. It's confusing with the NFL draft declarations also ongoing, and then guys also announcing returns. It's just all very confusing. But yeah, John Henry Daly, Smith Snowden, who was having to play like both ways because they needed playmakers on offense. He's now in the portal as well. So, like with BYU, we're going to have to see more of this fallout. Like, what all coaches are standing at the end of what Kyle Whittingham wants to get done, what players are still on both rosters, because he could very well pull from both of them. And then let's go from there. But for right now, yeah, like BYU initially is like, ha, 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 Utah. And then he's like, and I want to hire Jay Hill. damn it. Like, he's going to definitely pull from both sides.
Coaching carousel shrapnel.
Yeah, he's going to pull from both sides, so we'll see where they are. But that was a great win for Utah. Obviously, we talked about BYU. The Pop-Tarts Bowl was freaking amazing and awesome and a great win for them. So it's been a very eventful, newsworthy few days for the state of Utah in college football.
Well, Kyle Whittingham, for Utah fans that are mad that he took Jason Beck with him, well, did Jason Beck go to Utah to work for Morgan Scalley, or did he go to work for Kyle Whittingham?
Yeah. I think it's clear now.
It's clear now, yeah. And again, no offense to you, Kyle, but this is Michigan, and Michigan in a corner where they need to clean up a lot of things, and you might have gotten a little bit extra money out of the guys in the big house because they are in a bind right now because of what happened with Sharon Moore. So they make this great hire with Kyle Whittingham, a guy with a lot of experience and can balance them out, and then he's going to go get guys. Look, you know who's not surprised that Jay Hill eventually left him is Kalani Sitake.
Released a statement that was everything you thought he would say.
The Kalani Sitake, Kyle Whittingham staffs are so it's just they've coached everywhere with each other. Like it's not a surprise. They know that Utah and BYU guys, when those guys go, there's a transference between those two that happens maybe more than any other rivals. And Michigan's got a big sway and able to do things, so they shouldn't be surprised. And so let's see who's standing. But also, if you like your coach, if you like Morgan Scalley and the potential that he brings, and if you like Kalani Sitake, and I'm pretty sure if you're a BYU fan, you more than like him, you love him, then trust him to go get another good defensive coordinator.
And also remember that Kalani Sitake does a lot of work on the defense, along with what Scalley does as well.
I think BYU will be fine. I just need to see who's going to be on the roster next year. If they lose a lot of their difference makers defensively, then you still feel good about things. But I think there could be a little bit more of a learning curve. And then again, we thought, you lose your quarterback right at the beginning of the summertime, and you think that'll be a real killer for them. And it turns out Bear Bachmeier's just like, no problem. I'll take over and we'll be just fine. So maybe this is the case here. And I do think they're well equipped with just the culture and the foundation they have now and Sitake taken care of, that BYU can weather this changeover and Utah can weather this changeover. It's just amount of how much damage is done as far as just who you're going to have to replace. And so far there's been a couple big names, a couple big coordinators that now both teams are going to have to change over as a result of the Whittingham hire at Michigan. That'll just be something we continue to talk about. And I have full faith that both staffs, Scalley and Sitake, will be able to find guys to fit and maybe be just as good if we'll see maybe upgrades in some ways.
Do you guys see where Colton Necky's going back to Kansas?
Well, I think that's great news for them. I think there's a lot of stuff going on, man. It's hard to
we got to hit Max here in a minute.
Wrap everything up. But I think there was a lot of questions with where's he going to go? I wondered that actually while we were on break is what happens with Colton Nicky, because James Franklin's not bringing him to Virginia Tech and Penn State's not going to keep him around there with Campbell because he's obviously bringing his guy from Iowa State. So what does happen? And just he was out there in the ether, I guess, but that's great news for Kansas because last time he was around, they were playing really well offensively. No Jalen Daniels obviously still hanging around. But that will lead me into one other note, and then we break. But Avery Johnson announcing he's coming back.
Yeah,
so
let's go. You got that up, Garrett. So Kansas State has lost a lot because of the coaching change, but Avery Johnson has made the decision and also announced that he's coming back.
I don't know that he had an NFL decision to make. I highly doubt it, even though he's got great size and skill base and all of that. But I just think coming off of this year, I don't know what his NFL stock looks like, and that's always kind of iffy. You read things, and it turns out to be way off target when you actually get into the NFL scouts' brains. I think he is well served by coming back another year. My question was whether it was going to be at Kansas State or not. But with Colin Klein coming back, no-brainer that he would come back to Kansas State and resume that relationship and rekindle that success they had together. So I don't know how obvious this was or how much of a certain thing this was. No, but I think once Colin Klein was hired, it felt that way, and I'm glad to see it official. I think that's great news for KSU.
Because there hasn't been a lot of good news, although everyone loves the fact that Colin Klein is coming back to be their head coach. When we come back, we will speak with Max Olson, who last night didn't sleep, I think, as the portal opened up. And in the first 30 minutes, there was 1,000 players. Now it's 4,500. We'll touch in with him news about Brendan Sorsby? Not quite yet, but at least some news there. Sam Levitt, maybe. This is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium off I-35 in Waco. And, man, have they been able to get through a lot of different stuff going on when it came to the holidays, from dinners and festivities and even some Christmas parties and more. And don't forget, just because the calendar turns to 2026, they will have a lot of great events. And the menu, just to go in there and enjoy the amenities of what you have with the Baylor Club when it comes to eating dinner or lunch, it's just fantastic. The food is incredible. The top chefs that they continue to tweak the menu about what you want, and they do it really, really well. If you have any kind of special event coming up this year, whether it's this month or maybe in 2 or 3, the Baylor Club will host it for you, and their staff will make sure that it's smooth from start to finish. The Baylor Club, General Manager Nick Colwell of I-35 inside McLean Stadium in Waco.
25 years of excellence in IT, Carrion Solutions is your trusted technology partner. From managed IT services to cutting-edge cybersecurity, our expert team delivers tailored solutions that drive success. Our portfolio includes products such as Veeam, Bitdefender, Microsoft, Cisco, and Fortinet. Call David Carrion and his team of experts. Call 888-522-2221 or visit us at carrionsolutions.com.
At BK4, we step onto the field every day for our customers. Here, legends are born and glory is earned. The spirit of competition unites us all as we stand as one. It's more than a truck, it's a passion. Get ready for the thrill, the triumphs, and the unforgettable moments that only BK Ford can deliver. Are you ready to experience better? BK Ford.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
So it's football season, and we can create your outdoor tailgating spaces that is actually a part of your home. Bifold doors that tie in the inside and the outside, and you can gain anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 square feet living space, all while taking in the big game poolside. Call us at Gather & Co. Kitchen and Bath, where we can create your unique tailgating space.
This is 365 Sports.
Max Olson has every right to tell us he does not have time for this segment, but he's a gamer and a great reporter, ESPN. The portal opened at midnight. He is nonstop. And I think doing IV for food intake right now.
He is, look, if Lane Kiffin's the portal king, Max Olson is the portal prince.
Yeah. Max, how many players, at least as of now, is it at 3,000 or 4,000? What is it?
Yeah, in terms of just overall, like D1, FBS and FCS combined, over 4,500 today. Over 4,500 total. And obviously, we started seeing those entries start popping up at midnight Eastern. So it's been a crazy day.
Who's the name? Is it Sorsby that kickstarts everything else that might happen with his visits to Tech and LSU?
Yeah, 100%. I think that with this quarterback market, that is a big domino here. And I think for weeks it has seemed like, man, Texas Tech, Brendan Sorsby makes a lot of sense. Lane Kiffin and LSU have made a huge push here in the last few weeks, and they're going to get a visit right after Texas Tech. And, LSU needs a QB1 for year one under Kiffin. So that is going to be, I think, a pretty straight up bidding war. Two great opportunities for Brendan Thorsby. And, I think if it doesn't work out for Texas Tech, for example, like you probably move on to like a Sam Levitt or a bunch of these other really good quarterbacks out there. But you got to know pretty quickly, I think, hey, are you coming or not? If not, we got to move on to plan B here. And, I think there's, after you have the quarterbacks that I think everyone sort of expects to follow their coaches, Rocco Becht and Byron Brown and Drew Messamaker, you got a group of QBs there that could end up in a few different spots.
Max, Cam Coleman is the top wide receiver out there, leaving Auburn. I know he's going to go visit Texas and A&M and probably Alabama, maybe Oklahoma as well. How much he's different, because there will be some guys who are maybe on the tier just below Cam Coleman that wait to see who their quarterback is. But for a guy like him, he just has to go and pick a team with an established quarterback that he likes the most, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think Cam Coleman, if he picks the right spot and has a highly productive year in 26, I think there's a real potential there that he's a first round pick. And I think people have kind of seen that from him throughout his 2 years at Auburn. He's 6'3", 201. He's had a few games where he's just really taken things over for the Tigers. He's played with 5 different starting QBs during his college career. So I think getting into a more stable situation with a contender, I for sure think that he's got a chance to be a first round type of player. And, he was a top 5 recruit. And I think that Auburn's been a pretty funky situation, obviously, the past 2 years. He was productive regardless, but Cam Coleman, whatever he picks, I think we will view him as a guy that has a chance to be one of the best in the country at his position.
Yeah, I guess the early kind of prognostications have Texas maybe getting him, and then Louisville running back Isaac Brown, which would be a nice haul, obviously, but it's early, and we'll see how all this goes. Max, I because it's early, I feel kind of dumb asking this question, but is there just something you've observed early on? I know we expected Sam Levitt to be official and Josh Hoover and these guys, but has there been anything that's been a bit of a curveball individually or maybe from a group standpoint that stands out to you at all at this point?
Today, I think Malik Brown going to the portal was a little bit surprising from Arizona State. First team All Big 12 player, who he to Arizona State's credit, Kenny Dillingham. We talked with him in the summer about Malik Brown. He's a guy who was trying to play wide receiver at USC and just really didn't work out. He goes to Arizona State. He changes his body, and they really developed him into a really dynamic player. And so that was a surprise simply from the standpoint of that he had declared he was going to enter the NFL draft. And so I think he wavered on that a little bit based on some feedback. And certainly there's going to be a big market for Malik Brown. So that would be one surprise today. But, as you guys have seen last few weeks, a lot of agents kind of announcing moves in advance here. And I think because of the way this calendar works and the portal's open for 2 weeks and, that's it. That's all. I think you're going to see in the next 2, 3, 4 days in very rapid succession, guys taking visits, committing, signing. I think these portal classes are going to come together very, very quickly. I talked to someone last night who said they were hoping to get 30 guys in town over the next 3 or 4 days. I think that's going to be the thing here is fast and furious.
Yeah. Isn't it Tulsa's coaching staff that actually is renting out an Airbnb and calling it the portal house, that they're all
that's right.
Like that? That's a great idea. And I'm sure others may be doing that too. So of the 4,500, how many of them are actually in the old days you could transfer if you were a graduate student? How many are now graduate students who probably will be in the portal?
Yeah, just looking at this earlier, I think if you look at the FBS scholarship players, which is kind of your recruited FBS players, a little bit concerning early on. The percentage of those guys that are grad transfers that have their degrees or are going to have their degrees is 16% right now, and that's a pretty big drop off from last year. I think last year was probably 23, 24%. So a little concerning to see that. Part of that is just the rules that guys can transfer an unlimited number of times compared to a few years ago when it was a one-time transfer rule. But don't love to see that. I think if you're an administrator or a coach, an AD, I don't think that's a good trend to observe, but certainly a sign of the times.
Max, what do you expect to see from the teams that retained their coaches despite the protests of their fans and a commitment to we're going to put real money behind this now, as if they didn't see what was going on before, which would make me nervous if I was a fan of one of those schools?
Just hypothetically, if you were, right?
If I was, I don't want to name names.
Yeah, it's funny. We saw this a year ago where Florida kind of surprised people by keeping Billy Napier, and they said, "Oh, we're going to fund the roster instead of funding the buyout." And really, they kind of spent that money on keeping the guys that they had, and really didn't add much in the portal. Like, I think if you're going to make that move, you got to be pretty aggressive and go really add a lot of players. And at some of these programs, like you're losing a lot, so you got to add a lot, but. I also think, like, as I'm watching this play out, guys, like I was counting this up last night. You see like 50 players from Oklahoma State in the portal. And like, I know that was expected, right? I mean, we saw all these, it's over 50, close to 60 now, scholarship players in the portal. It's a reminder, like Oklahoma State tried to kind of go flip it with the portal last year and really put together a pretty bad team. So like that, I think we're going to see more of that as you restrict this down to 2 weeks, and you gotta have a really high batting average on this stuff right now. There's going to be some pretty funky looking teams at the end of this who needed to add a lot, and maybe either they didn't get what they were looking for, or they spent on the wrong guys or whatever. Like, I think the roster building experiment's going on right now. Whether you're rebuilding or reloading, or you're on the hot seat, like you said, there's going to be some pretty unique outcomes here, I think, over the next month.
I think Iowa State's probably in one of those extremes, right? With the way their roster, just the Matt Campbell change, and then you had what was the discussion of, like, they had 20-something guys still technically in the roster, and then I was seeing Chris Williams, who covers them, and he's like, by the end of the weekend they'll have like 50 new commits probably because of exactly what you're explaining here.
Yeah, Iowa State is a monster reset for Jimmy Rogers and that staff, and I think you kind of expect that when you don't promote from within for that job. Then those players are going to are extremely loyal to Matt Campbell, and they're at Iowa State because of Matt Campbell, and so they're going to explore their options at least during this time. And so and then part of that is like a new staff comes in and it's sort of like, all right, see you later. Like, whether those kids wanted to stay or not, like the new staff's going to bring their guys, right? So yeah, you're already seeing a lot of Washington State recruit like commits, flipping over to Iowa State. I think you'll see a bunch of Washington State players go to Iowa State. That's kind of the business right now. And to be honest, part of that is like the success of Chris Signetti at Indiana, right? Like, you've got some of these programs like Indiana or Colorado that have shown, like, hey, you can go flip that thing right away and get this thing turned around. And so I think you're seeing ADs now hiring coaches and saying, like, hey, who can you bring with you? And so Matt Campbell's going to bring a lot of players to Penn State, and Jimmy Rogers is going to bring a lot of players with him to Iowa State.
I know you got to go. Where's Josh Hoover? What seems to be going on with him?
I think that, we'll see what visit schedule he comes up with. But, man, I think Indiana would be kind of a no-brainer if he has the opportunity to go be the next man up there. And you've seen, obviously, Signetti's track record of turning his quarterbacks into, offensive player of the years and Heisman contenders and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'd be very interested to see if that's the move for Josh Hoover. Indiana's, they were in the market last year for the best of the best of Mendoza. And, I curious to see, they have Mendoza's brother coming back, right? So, like, they could go stick with him and develop him and let him be the next guy up. But that would be one to watch, I think, for Josh Hoover.
Any inclination on I know that the dominoes have to fall for the quarterbacks, but any feel for Dylan Raiola at this point?
Yeah, I think if I had to guess today, and I guess we'll see kind of, again, like, what other schools are in the mix there? Does he set up some visits? I know there's some talk about Louisville early on. If I had to guess today, I think Dylan Raiola's dream scenario would be the next guy at Oregon. And the Ducks are obviously still in the playoff. Dante Moore hasn't made a decision on whether he's going to go pro or stay in school. I think a few weeks ago, the hunch was that he was probably going to stay in school despite all the draft projections. Now that they're going further in the playoff and he maybe has a chance to be the number 1 or number 2 pick, like, I think he probably will go pro. So yeah, Oregon's another wild card in all of this. If Dante Moore goes pro, Do they go get Sam Levitt? Do they go get Dylan Raiola?
All right, letting you go. Have you slept? Did you just stay up all night and watch this thing trickle down? Or are you actually getting a cat nap or two?
I slept like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe not the doctor recommended amount, but surviving advance right now.
So the portal's open for 2 weeks. People can still transfer after it closes, but their name needs to be in it before it closes. Just want to make sure I clarify that. Yeah.
Name needs to be in it before then. The thing that obviously I think a lot of people fear is that I hope we don't get to April and somebody's just like, well, I want to transfer, so I'm going to file a lawsuit and we're going to try it, right? Like I hopefully people kind of like, it's challenging for everybody, but hopefully people can kind of stick to this window and we can get this all done in the month of January here, but we shall see.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time. We know it's hectic, crazy. Max Olson, who does an amazing job following the portal from ESPN, up at midnight, probably before that. He's got a spreadsheet and all that other good stuff. And the shrapnel of whatever happens, whether it's Sorsby or Levitt or whoever, and how it might affect Cam Coleman and how it might affect the rest of the teams interested.
Yeah, just taking a look at I just pulled up On3 and their top 5 portal guys. I will say I did not like that we had this very brief honeymoon and like elation following Ole Miss Georgia, and it's immediately like, all right, the portal's open, all hell breaks loose. Yep. I just feel like we could kind of sit in that Ole Miss Georgia afterglow for a little bit longer without immediately, when the clock strikes midnight, going straight into full effing chaos, for lack of a better description. Although it's less chaotic than it was maybe even a couple of years ago. But this is going to be really interesting with the time constraints, as he pointed out, of how quickly a lot of this could move. And Iowa State, I mentioned Chris Williams of Cyclone Fanatic, and I'm paraphrasing what he said, but there's a thing last week about, they're down technically to like 16 guys or whatever. And he's sitting there talking about how they could basically have like refilled like over half their roster in the next 3 days. So does that mean they're bringing over like half of Washington State's team? I don't know. But you are going to see Jimmy Rogers bring guys from Wazoo there. Matt Campbell's trending for Ben Bramer, the big tight end. And also, of course, Rocco Beck's like a foregone conclusion that he's going to go there. It's just going to be really fascinating to see the guys who follow their head coaches that the carousel disrupted, but then also just the wild cards. And the big names right now, I mean, Cam Coleman's the top-ranked player in the portal. A lot of arrows pointing at Texas, a lot of arrows pointing to potentially A&M. And maybe others.
He was committed to A&M before, but I don't know what that means nowadays.
It seems like there's a lot of smoke with Texas.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of smoke with the number 2 player in Texas, and that's Louisville running back Isaac Brown, who right now, I think if you were saying he's trending anywhere, I believe it would probably be Texas. Then Utah's John Henry Daly, who we mentioned earlier. I think Michigan would make a lot of sense there. Sam Levitt, 4th overall. And he just mentioned the kind of scenarios out there. There was the little Kentucky report that popped up with Sam Levitt, and could he possibly have interest in going there? And that would be a real curveball. I guess a lot will depend on what happens with Sorsby, because if LSU doesn't get Sorsby, well, then who are they going to get?
Or if Tech doesn't get him.
Or if LSU doesn't get Sorsby, then Tech's getting Sorsby.
And Griffiths, by the way, entered the portal. Texas Tech's quarterback. Yeah, he wasn't going to. He's blocked out. Yeah.
No, he was. No.
Plus, they have that incoming, that freshman, highly ranked guy too.
I mean, but Tech's going to have to get a guy. So my point is, if Sorsby's Tech or LSU, and he's not going to how did I phrase it? Now you got me all confused here.
If he's not going to Tech, then he's not,
going to LSU. But would Kentucky somehow be a wild card there? And then what does that mean? Then who would LSU go after? Who would Tech go after?
Kentucky's going to trade. What was it, Boley?
Yeah,
to Arizona State for Sam Levitt and a player to be named later.
Yeah, Cutter Boley from Kentucky is rumored to go be the new QB at Arizona State. I'll just trust Kenny Dillingham's quarterback thoughts, regardless.
Cutter Boley had some good stats this year in spite of being on a bad offensive team. And that sounds, with a bunch of eligibility left, that sounds to me like Sam Levitt a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I did not think Sam Levitt was going to be what he turned out to be. So, like, again, I'll just, if you say Kenny Dillingham's going to get X quarterback, I'll say, okay, I'm sure he's great. He'll be great with Kenny Dillingham. Yep. But, yeah, Levitt and that Kentucky thing was just kind of a little bit of a, whoa, what is that about? Hoover, Indiana seems like it's 99.999% done. But yeah, I had to ask about Raiola because Levitt was an Oregon rumor, but he's also been an LSU rumor. So I guess that would be another place that Levitt could pivot. But yeah, the quarterback dominoes are going to move fast. And the only one that seems like you can just go ahead and put it in writing would be like Rocco Becht to Penn State, Sorsby to Hoover to Indiana. And then beyond that, we'll see where a lot of these guys end up. But I'm looking forward to just seeing the chaos of it all. I think it's going to be fun to kind of see these dominoes move around a little bit.
DJ Lagway, of course, in the portal, and 4 or 5 teams I saw where Baylor obviously makes sense because his father's lineage, although he didn't go there after he came out of high school. That will be interesting to see. You got to set the table. If you need to have a successful portal and you have a quarterback opening, you got to set the table and then allow everything else to then kind of fill in the gap.
And I have a couple of them. Drew Mestamaker, obviously. Oklahoma State seems like that should be a layup, but we'll see there because I'm sure his phone's ringing, and not just from Stillwater's area code, but that seems like it would be a pretty big slam dunk. Caleb Hawkins is actually a couple spots higher in the rankings. That seems like he would be a slam dunk. He's from Oklahoma originally, so, I mean, you got to get that done if you're Eric Morris. And then Byron Brown seems like he's probably following Golish to Auburn. But, for as much chaos as it causes and as much I guess, as a thorn in the side it was there when it was kind of all being figured out, the initial rush, especially when you got some of the quarterback chips in play, and then you have your Cam Coleman's and your guy, like, it is fun. Like, it is fun to try to figure out where all these guys are going to go and then how you relaunch your team into spring and whatnot. So, yeah, some interesting names for sure.
I thought that you mentioned Cam Coleman, that Parker Livingstone getting into the portal, who was Arch Manning's roommate, and a guy that I think most Texas fans did not want to see that happen, even though he might have opportunities. I forgot who it was, a former player that said, here's a guy that would have been at Texas 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
Would have ended up being a phenomenal type, not a legend, but good. And would have been someone, and then he's in the portal. And in this day and age, when you're going to bring in a Cam Coleman, whoever else, then, yeah, you're going to have some chewing up of the roster.
By the way, Austin Simmons from Ole Miss is in the portal as well. Mizzou is the favorite for him right now. Bo Pribula in the portal, and UCF is trending towards Bo right now, which I like his athleticism in that Scott Frost offense, I think. And again, it's just a year. I mean, like a lot of these guys are year rentals, which that would be the case for Bo down there in Orlando. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting ones, and On3 and several of the sources really pushing the Sam Levitt in Kentucky with Will Stein. Look, Will Stein's there now. He's quarterback's going to want to play for him.
SEC, if you dreamed of playing in the SEC, there's a pull there. So yeah, I mean, that Kentucky thing, I was not anticipating seeing that, but there's reasons to go, okay, yeah, that could totally make some sense.
Well, with Will Stein there, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so if you pull Levitt out of possibly going to LSU, like that's what I was getting at earlier, is like, okay, well then they strike out on Sorsby, then what does LSU do? But maybe Austin Simmons would make a lot of sense now because obviously Lane Kiffin liked him enough to recruit him the first time around, bring him to Baton Rouge with him. Maybe not the Ole Miss quarterback you were wanting, but we don't know if Trinidad Chambliss is going to be allowed to play next year. That's a pretty big waiver. We're going to have to see whether that comes through or not, because then if he doesn't, then who's Ole Miss's quarterback next year? With Simmons now jumping in the portal. So, yeah, it's crazy, but it's crazy fun unless your team's not benefiting from it. But as somebody who's not really being affected all that much by it right now, it's awesome to just kind of take it all in. And there will be more names, I'm sure, because Austin Simmons is within the last hour.
Yeah.
Colton Joseph, Old Dominion's getting some looks. The G5.
Yeah, he should. He's a good player.
He shouldn't be getting any looks, just one.
Oh, is
he?
Kenny Minchie, I saw where at least you see all these crystal balls may end up at Lincoln with Matt Rule and also Dana Holgerson.
He has a do not contact tag. So if people are saying Nebraska, then that's probably right because he has a do not contact tag.
Can he walk and chew gum?
Like Sam Levitt also has a do not contact tag.
Can he run?
Speaking of Texas Tech, by the way, Austin Romaine visiting there, and they fully expect K-State, and they fully expect San Diego State edge Trey White.
Well, they got to replace. Yeah, they got to replace David Bailey, who was a badass in that game, and all year long. I saw where Mike Golick Jr. on David Bailey in the game. Sorry, Paul. Said he doesn't wear any hands, any gloves.
Hell, he doesn't even have his jersey all the way over his shoulder pad.
He just goes and wrecks people up. Yeah, just wrecks people
up. It looks like he barely gets out of the locker room.
He just puts the least amount of effort into putting his clothes on just so he can go use all of it on the field. But he's awesome, and he will be hard to replace. And they've got a litany of guys. I mean, but yeah, starting off with getting a Trey White would be a nice a start. They're obviously going to get a quarterback of some sort, probably Brendan Sorsby, but we'll see on that. I think that Tech now is only further motivated. It was kind of like, I think people were hoping that, okay, well, if this doesn't work and they lose in the first round of the playoff or they don't come close to winning the national title, and maybe this is how we close out the show today, fellas, because we don't have top fives or anything. But
we do have a top five.
Oh, we do have a top.
Yeah,
okay. Well, we don't have quizzes, is I guess what I was thinking of. Yeah. But like, where does Tech go from here? And you saw the Cody Campbell tweet, I'm sure. Like,
yeah, double down.
The hope is, if you're anti-Tech, that they're going to go, well, we can't just keep spending all this money, but this was a successful year.
Why can't they if Oregon can?
Well, that's what I'm going to get to. First of all, it was a successful year. Just because you didn't win the Natty, you made the playoff, you won the Big 12 for the first time ever. You're going to have multiple draft picks, unlike you've had in a long time, and you're going to be a prized place to go for a lot of these top portal guys and top high school recruits as well. And that's the thing, is they are not only doing very well in the portal, and that all paid off for them this year, but they're going to be just as hot and heavy this year because of all the guys they now have to replace that got them to where they were. But they're also recruiting the high school ranks very, very well. Guys like Felix Ojo and LaDamian Guyton at big difference-making positions like tackle or the defensive line edge rusher. So they're going to have a really good, perfect storm of the ability to hit the portal, but also hopefully raise up these high school guys as well. It's just a matter of, can you keep LaDamian Guyton and Felix Ojo for 2 or 3 years, 4 years maybe, and not have them drift off? Can you develop them and keep them while also adding your David Bailey types and have the chemistry that you had this year, which I think, as good as Joey McGuire may be with that, you can't just replicate that year to year. But I do think
because they're not always going to be hits, although what they did.
They hit on everything practically this year. Like they were
incredible.
They were a near 100% success rate. So I think any semblance of thought that like they're going to go anywhere, that one day Cody Campbell's going to be like, well, it's been like 5 years and $100 million. We've only gone to like the semifinals. Dude, that's only going to further motivate him. He's not going to go, I think I'm done paying money now. Like, they are truly just getting started with this thing.
Are his oil wells going to dry up?
Right. I mean,
well, he's not the only one, but he is the lead dog.
He's the one
that tweeted it, right?
And he's also the one who's had like 15 articles written about him in the last 5 months. So, I mean, he's the face of it, although there are others, but he is very clearly, undeniably the face of the whole operation. But there are others that do deserve, like Dustin Womble deserves to be mentioned along with that, among others. But yeah, this idea of like, oh, well, that was Tech's best shot, and they're gonna go fade away now. It's like, no, they're just getting started, and I think the question is going to be BYU's answer the call. Although they're not going to have to deal with losing Jay Hill and maybe others, but who else is going to answer the bell? Like, is somebody going to step up and give Kenny Dillingham the money he needs for the roster that he wants? Is like somebody in Fort Worth going to go, damn it, TCU hasn't won the Big 12 in forever. We got to put some money. We got to put some Fort Worth money behind this thing, because Texas Tech's not going anywhere.
No.
And BYU's not going anywhere. So what about everybody else? Are they going to be able to pony up and play? Not everybody obviously can fork over the dollars. Can you set yourself up, though, where every 2 or 3 years you make a run and then you see if it works out and see where it takes you, and then you go back down, and like, it's going to be fascinating to see. But yeah, those two aren't going anywhere. Those two are primed and in position to be dominant in this league, especially if others don't rise to the occasion. But yeah, for Tech, it was a terrible loss because it was just nothing close to what you were hoping that it would be. But it was an incredible season. And again, it's just getting started.
And here's how they did it. And this is what people need to copy. It's not just the amount of money they spent. That is a fool's errand to think that, okay, I just need to fill up this money bucket to this level and take the money bucket and throw it around.
Just like spending money in the NFL and free agency doesn't mean it works.
What they did is, and this is where so many coaches have gone awry, and part of it is because they only knew high school recruiting. Portal recruiting is a new thing. But they already knew how to do it. They just forgot, because it should be like JUCO recruiting. Smokey, I know that you remember this. Craig, you remember this. Back when you brought in a JUCO player, usually it meant because you expected them to start or be in your rotation, correct? You didn't bring in a JUCO guy to sit on the bench.
No, you did not. No,
he had 2
he
years
He was a
of
guy that was supposed to be at Auburn, but he like smoked weed or something, and he didn't go to class.
That's the framework that you need to look at. Okay, this guy was a kick-ass player in JUCO. Okay, that's what you need. Untapped potential is for high school recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
What you want in the portal is take 1 or 2 guys that maybe are a bad scheme fits in the place or were 4 stars or 5 stars that you can get and you think you can coach them up. You get a couple of those guys. You get a couple. But the majority of you, say you take 20 transfers, 18 need to be guys who you think are ready to go the day they put their shoulder pads on. They can start or compete for you regularly and be part of your rotation right away. You do not do untapped potential on transfers. And that's what Tech did. They went out and got guys who, if you were on offense, you had to have receptions or you had to have starts in the offensive line. If you're on defense and you're going to be in the defensive line, you better have stuff to run. You better have some sacks or you're not coming.
Yeah, they didn't get like the number 42 ranked D tackle and the number 50.
No, they got Lee freaking Hunter.
They got like 1, 2, 4, 6.
Yeah.
Like, and I'd imagine they're going to set up to do that again, and there will be others nationally that try to prevent some of that. But I think it's very clear they got to go get a quarterback. They got to replace a hellacious defense. I do think they've got the linebackers to kind of help soften the blow of a Jacob Rodriguez, guys that will be coming back. But that D-line, having difference makers like Bailey and Skylar Gill-Howard and Lee Hunter and all those guys, they're going to be spending big, and everybody knows they're spending big too. So, it's going to be a fascinating offseason, but it's a bad taste in your mouth, but I think the meal was terrific.
I want one play from that Texas Tech loss to to Oregon. Lee Hunter chasing down, was it Dante Moore or the running back on a 4th and 2 or 3? That big son of a bitch in the middle who's unbelievable player, his quickness. They eventually, again, lost, but I just thought that was one of my favorite plays over the last few days of watching the playoff games and the bowl games.
They had difference makers defensively. They just need some more now offensively. I think that was very clear. So I think we'll see them not only go QB, I think we'll see them go after some receivers. They did get Terrence Carter Jr. announced he's coming back, so that's huge to get him back.
He was
for
the best
fold.
player on offense.
He was their best player on offense. So he's announced he announced in the post game
in that game.
But he announced one of the best on their offense, period. But, yeah, certainly in that game. But he's announced he's coming back next year. So that's a good start. And it's going to be a wild-ass offseason for the Red Raiders and for everybody, especially these first few days of this portal.
You have like just stuff. I want to just throw these out. Paul's got a top 5 coming up, but also Zach Barnett's going to join us later in the show. Garrett, unbelievable job, by the way, with what you've done. So Charlie Weiss was at the LSU game, of course, was at the Ole Miss game last night. He was at LSU football ops Friday morning. That staff that's been going back and forth, just love those guys, all of them.
It helped that they were in New Orleans, so they could make but yeah, like I know what your point is.
No.
Like just them doing the double duty, it's amazing.
They probably didn't sleep.
I'm sure probably not. I just think it's amazing that some of these guys are putting the workload on, and I don't know how they're going to be able to keep doing it for a couple of weeks, but we'll see.
Who did Signetti, Lanning, Cristobal, and Golding once work for?
Nick Saban.
And by the way, if Smart would have won, then obviously that would have been the same thing.
That is pretty crazy. I mean, I know he had a lot of especially when you had extra coaches you could have on staff, so you could have the former head coach who's just like a press box guy for you as an analyst, but the coaching tree is insane. It really is insane.
It's ridiculous. Miami's a 3-point pick against Ole Miss. Indiana's a 4-point pick against Oregon.
No, are they -3 or +3, Miami?
-3.
Okay, sorry. I thought they were
+3 pick. 3-point pick.
No, and look, I would say that because I think that they have more experience on their roster, and they know that all their coaches will be in Miami all week long working on it.
Tennessee, 8-5, never out of the poll. They were 8-0 against teams with losing records. They were 0-5 against teams with winning records.
Yeah, there were a lot of deep dives in some of this kind of SEC narrative throughout the regular season and kind of looking back on it and going, so why was Tennessee propping up other teams when it came to playoff resumes? Or
Missouri.
Or why was Missouri propping up teams? And, dude, once you see the magic trick, you can't unsee it. And if you don't see the magic trick, then I think you're just living in denial. That's not to say the SEC doesn't have the best team most years, even though lately it hasn't been the last 2, and it might not be this year either. with only one team in the Final Four and a team that is not even favored in the next round. But there is stuff like that. That's my issue. My issue isn't that you give 3 teams in the playoffs for this league versus that league. It's that you sit there and you act like 7 and 8, like Vandy in the bowl game against Iowa. They were trying to squeeze them in the playoff there at the end.
That didn't count.
Greg Sankey's talking about we need 7 teams. Bullshit. You need 7 teams.
No.
I think this proved you don't need 7 teams, and you didn't earn or deserve 7 teams. And I don't like making everything this SEC versus the world. I really don't. But there are things like that you do see occur, and you have to push back when you get the chance, because you do go, so wait a second. Yeah, why was Missouri and Tennessee propping everybody up? And
go ahead.
Look, there's a through line here. Greg Sankey, Mike Slive, they spent a quarter century building up the brand of the SEC through legitimate wins, winning national titles, and also a crap load of propaganda. Greg Sankey is one of the most brilliant dudes in all of athletics. I don't think anybody would deny that. I think part of the reason you see Greg Sankey speak as much as he does is he knows that the numbers don't really bear out what the SEC used to be now based to what it is because of the portal and all of that.
And a guy retired.
The game has changed in a very short amount of time.
And you want to hold on to the steering wheel.
So you've got to hold on to the steering wheel. So you're going to keep pumping that propaganda, because right now the numbers aren't going to dictate it out like they used to.
But it's also his job to do exactly as the SEC commissioner.
I'm not saying it, but I think that's why you see it a lot.
He should do what he's doing.
And you see a lot of the guys who were kind of in Sankey's pocket in that a little bit, also repeating those things because it's what they're used to.
I saw a lot of A&M media and Texas media taking shots at Texas Tech the last 24 hours because,
they scored 3 whole points more.
And I get that too. That's all fan bases.
I think the fact that you've got Billy Liucci or whoever on the Aggie side, and you've got whoever on the Texas side, I think the fact that they're talking about Texas Tech and trying to diminish them being in the playoff is more.
To me, it's immature and childish.
Well, but that's college football, though, and
it is.
And that's a lot of the media, unfortunately, as well. I do think, though, that I would take that any day over being completely irrelevant and not being mentioned by them at all. The fact that you're being mentioned, the fact that you're being mentioned in the position that you're in, they don't like that. They don't feel like you belong in that universe, and yet here you are. So I would take something with me in that regard.
I actually direct messaged somebody that covers Texas. I said, man, there are too many homers that right now for websites and media outlets that cover college football. It really is. It's astonishing. Because why otherwise would they be saying what they're saying? Well, because they're either connected to one school or the other. Nebraska, hammered by Utah. They've now lost 30 straight games against AP-ranked teams. God. Matt Brown with the last thing. So he sponsors that bowl game. He said, my kids are way less impressed that their dad sponsored a bowl game now that they've discovered other bowl games have Pop-Tart trophies or huge bowls of cereal that players can jump in after they score a touchdown. Did you see that? Mm-hmm. Oh, my God, it's great. And that's, again, the numbers are way up. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that marketing-wise, they're doing a great job. All right, Paul's top 5 is around the corner. You want to close it out with anything else?
No, I just think it was a great weekend. And I know we're on a Friday, so we're actually going into the weekend, but everything's blurry with the dates for Christmas and New Year's and all that. So I hope everybody had a happy holidays and a great New Year's, and just glad to be back and glad to have so much to talk about, and glad that Ole Miss and Georgia delivered us with one hell of a nightcap last night. And don't love the portal opening right after, but it's going to make for some fun shows here over the next few weeks as all of this gets sorted out and the playoffs roll along. And I just think compared to where we were after the first round, it's a much better place to be in with a very fun Final Four. And I think 3 games remaining that are going to be really cool. And we still got some games going on tonight as well. So we'll have a little bit more regular bowl action to the end of tonight, and then it'll be all playoffs and portal and whatever else. But it's a fun time to be on this ride, and glad to have anybody who's with us.
Cincinnati Navy tied mid-second quarter 7-7, by the way, in that game in Memphis. All right, if you don't think the bowl games matter, go look at video of TCU quarterback Kenny Seals after they had that dramatic comeback win against USC on that overtime touchdown to Payne. For Craig Smoak and for Paul Catalina, the top 5, and then also Zach Barnett from footballscoop.com. Garrett Ross, thank you. This is 365 Sports.
Wearing one suit this summer, it has to be Tuileries Performance Linen. It's wrinkle resistant, machine washable, and built with stretch and breathability that actually moves with you. It'll keep you cool, sharp, and stress-free at your next event.
When you view the glass half full, the little things become magical. 10% of profits go to help kids heal. So choose optimism and make the magic real. Visit lifeisgood.com.
The Lumi Charge is an all-in-one home desk lamp, speaker, and phone charger. It is a great...
I need that for my son when he goes off to college.
A secret, I travel internationally every year. I struggle with insomnia, both at home and especially in hotels. This was life-changing. It's called Fly Kit. My favorite aspect of the Fly Kit is it tells you when to sleep.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, the first one of 2026. I know you missed me terribly. It was painful and lonely and sad. I get it. But guess what? It's a new year, and I'm here. I'm here for you. Of course, brought to you by our good friends at Flag and Anthem. Go to flagandanthem.com. Use our promo code 365sports for a discount at checkout. The transfer portal is officially open, people. So let's go to top 5 transfers that any team should want, regardless of position. Now, there are no quarterbacks on this list because quarterbacks are more niche. They've got to fit into certain systems, certain coaches. These are guys who I think you can put in pretty much any system, anywhere, and they're going to be productive. Number 5, Trey White, defensive end, San Diego State. This guy has numbers. The Paul Catalina rules of the transfer portal are production, production, production. Untapped potential is for high school recruiting. Production, production, production. That's what this guy has done over the last couple of years at San Diego State. He's going to be very sought after. His former defensive coordinator is at Nebraska now, so I would say that they have probably a bit of an inside track. But again, the money in this portal cycle is going to be nuts. So who's going to jump in from the top rope with that big offer? We'll see. And that goes for any of these guys. But Trey White gets after the quarterback. He is on a rocket ship headed towards the first round of the NFL draft. When he decides to do that, this is a guy who can help any team because any team needs a guy who hunts QBs like Trey White does. Number 4, Rasheem Biles, linebacker at Pitt. Already set up a visit to Ohio State. If he winds up anywhere else, I'll be shocked because they kind of get who they want. But this guy, sideline to sideline, tackling machine. One of the best players in the entire ACC, regardless of position, this year has produced at a ridiculously high level and plugs in and plays in pretty much any defense because he is that versatile and can help you. Again, Ohio State, first visit he has lined up, and if it's not Ohio State, then somebody else came in with a really good offer. Number 3, Isaac Brown, running back, Louisville. This one actually just dropped today. I was debating between him and Rayleigh Brown from Arizona State or Hollywood Smothers from NC State. There's a lot of really good, intriguing running back options in the portal. I think Texas will be in heavy on Isaac Brown because they don't have any running backs left. It didn't really matter against Michigan the other day, but they need a running back. This one is a very complimentary to the offense that they run with Steve Sarkisian. But outside of a full-on spread offense, and even then I think he'd be good because he's big, strong, fast, catches the ball, like all the things you want. He could fit in anywhere. I think Isaac Brown is a just absolute Swiss Army knife guy you can plug and play in your offense right away. Number 2, Coy Parrish, safety from Minnesota. Three-way player. He never really gets off the field if he's on the offensive hot streak. He can help you on offense. He's an all Big Ten player on defense. He's an all Big Ten special teamer. He's up in Minnesota. He maybe goes back, but he is doing what most guys are doing and finding out their worth as the portal cycle goes nuts. And he will be highly, highly sought after over the whole country. Again, doesn't matter what kind of defense you play in. You want to play close to the line. You want to play deep. You want him to move around. You want him to do a lot of different things. Plus, he'll help you on offense and do some of those things. Coy Parrish, absolutely a guy who can help you. And number 1, John Henry Daly from Utah. Now, if I had to guess, and I'm not a professional guesser, there's nobody asking me for my Vegas odds on anything, what I think the odds are. I would say I am saying this almost specifically to Michigan fans because he and some other players are going to follow all of these people with Kyle Whittingham to Utah, from Utah to Michigan. So, but on the off chance that somebody else does land this massive fish, just like I said about Trey White, rushing the passer translates everywhere. This guy is a dog. So much so that he was still first team All Big 12 and missed 4 or 5 games this year. And you can tell the difference in the defense when he's not there. This is not one of those guys who, they put in another defensive end and you're like, oh, they got by. And they did. They had a really good season. Kyle Whittingham didn't get the job at Michigan just because he's been a coach for a long time. He's been a successful one for a long time. But it's also the ability to get and develop guys like this. I'm probably talking to Michigan fans right now. So if you're a Michigan fan, happy belated Christmas. Happy early Valentine's Day. John Henry Daly's probably heading to you, but we'll see. Jay Hill, I'm sure, has made him a priority in his first week on the job in Ann Arbor. Well, that's going to do it for this top 5. We wrap up the show right now.